Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and you know what time it is? It's July 2023, which means it's time again for the Barnes & Noble 50% off sale, MSRP price, of course, online mostly, and sometimes it's in store, not so much where I'm locally, but last year and then also earlier on this year, I actually made some other videos where I talked about Criterion Essentials. So these are films that are recommendations for you, that if you haven't picked these films up, I think these are deemed essential films that I think you should have in your collection. With that being said, I really think that everyone should at least check these films out at least once, even if you aren't a fan of these types of films. I think these are things that I think you could add to your collection super easily, and what a better time than now to get them 50% off, at the MSRP price. With that being said, I'm really excited to share with you 10 more essential films, one from each decade, from the 1920s all the way up to the 2010s. Obviously, I'm missing a little bit with the 1910s and then the 2020s, but a lot of those times, a lot of these films aren't really available, but I'll probably do some kind of essential thing in the future where I talk about some of those as well. But regardless, I want to know, before we jump into my 10 essentials that I think you should own, let me know in the comment section down below, what are some essentials that you think everyone should own in their collection, or at least check out at least one time in their lives. Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts on these essential films. All right, so earlier I did a take of this film and the lights turned off because the light bulb switched out, and I completely thought it was because I was talking about the one and only Hacken. Well, however you want to say it. From 1922, this is an essential film that is starring and talking about occult, Satanism, witchcraft, and the like, and a lot of the horror that ensues with all that. But it is such a fun film. It is so crazy this film came out in the 1920s, first of all, because around that time, the pre-code era, there was a lot of kind of lawlessness going on with cinema, but at the same time, something like this, you wouldn't expect a society to talk about something like this. And Benjamin Christensen did a really phenomenal job starring and directing this film, and there's a lot of really great special features in this, but it really is kind of studying the occult side of things with a little bit of a comedic edge to it too, because it is definitely a comedy of sorts, with horror kind of being the forefront of the whole thing. But this is an essential film from the 1920s. This is a silent picture. I don't think I had mentioned that, but it is just a really great film that I think will, get you interested into different aspects of society that you don't really see talked about as much. And lately I've been in a horror mood. I got my Suspiria shirt on. I've been watching the Friday the 13th movies, and also I just got a Black Phillip tattoo. So check that out on Instagram. It's down in the description as well. But Hacken, wow, what a film, and an essential at that one, and everyone should definitely check this film out. If you've not seen it, you're going to have yourselves a good time. It's really interesting, and it's really fascinating, to say the least. Next, we're going to go to the town of Bottleneck in the year 1939. We're talking about Destry Rides Again. This is just a really fantastic film directed by George Marshall, and we have Marlene Dietrich and James Stewart. This is a Western film that also has comedic elements too. So, of course, just like we were talking about Hacken, that also has comedy involved in that as like a secondary little nugget to it. But Destry Rides Again is a little bit more comedic probably, but I think the Western side of it is really essential. So this came out in 1939, which is a stacked year to say the least. Of course, we have Stagecoach, which eventually could be a potential film I could talk about on this series. We also have Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, etc. There's so many films from 1939 that are just essential films that everyone should check out at least. But Destry Rides Again, I think, is a film that a lot of people don't talk about. It is a Western that is probably a Western that's people who are not fans of that genre, I think they could find a fan of this film. It is really great, a great balance. It's got really great characters in it. Of course, Marlene Dietrich and James Stewart really play off each other really, really well. And this is an early James Stewart, kind of a later Marlene Dietrich film. But there's a really great scene in here that I also just absolutely adore, in a saloon with absolute insanity flying by, and the things and objects that they're throwing at each other, and the insults that they're having. It's so quippy, it's so energetic, it's got a lot of fun and a lot of heart to it, and I think a lot of people should check out Destry Rides Again. It belongs in an upper echelon of films from this year. So 1939, Destry Rides Again, pick this film up. All right, next we're going to talk about another comedy film, but this time comedy is probably at the forefront with horror/thriller elements as well. Talking about Frank Capra's Arsenic and Old Lace. This is starring Cary Grant and is just an absolutely romp of a time. It's definitely a lot of comedy. This is from 1944, so right around this time period, World War II is going on. It's kind of ending at around this time period. Frank Capra was actually even in the war himself. And Arsenic and Old Lace definitely felt like a really apt thing to come out around this time because a lot of people were just trying to ignore or at least kind of, understand what was going on in the world, and they needed a laugh. And this is a really dark comedy of sorts where Cary Grant comes home to his two aunts who he really adores and loves and always has loved them. And he discovers there is a body there, and also that the aunts, they're like, hey, yeah, we killed him. And this completely blows Cary Grant's world up and in his mind, and he has to figure out what the hell is going on. And it's just an absolutely hilarious time. Like I said, it's also dark at times, but I think this is just a really great classic film from Frank Capra, who is just a legendary director in his own right, and also starring Cary Grant, of course. It's just such a fun time, and I think everyone should check out this comedy. It's definitely one of the best recent films in the Criterion Collection. This came out not that long ago, actually. And I think everyone should definitely check it out and have that on their shelves. So Arsenic and Old Lace, a fun hell of a time. So next we're going to move to Japan, to a legendary director. We've talked about him on the channel plenty of times, and I've actually talked about this film quite a bit as well. I'm talking about Rashaman from 1950. This is Akira Kurosawa's Rashaman. It's also starring Toshiro Mifune, who is, I think around this time, fairly new to the scene, but this is just an incredibly psychological film that kind of delves into that effect of testimony, right? So testimony is not something that really is super trustworthy because everyone has their own ways of looking at things and how they've experienced different things. And that's what Rashaman really explores. It explores a murder and a rape of a woman who, you got different various people involved in this particular, atrocity that happens. And you're kind of going back and forth in time, figuring out and piecing it all together, and their perspectives of it as well. It's like in a tribunal, and they're trying to figure that out. And it's just an incredible film. It's a gorgeous film. It's dark, obviously, with the theme itself, but it's just a really great masterclass of directing. And I think that's what Kurosawa, eventually would craft very, very well in his future films. But Rashaman is just one of the best films of all time. And I think everyone should definitely own this in their collection, or at least check it out at least one time. Yeah, I think everyone who hasn't seen this is doing themselves a disservice. All right, so next we're actually moving to Taiwan, so not too far away, actually, from Japan. We're talking about Dragon Inn from King Hu. This is from 1967. This is a wuxia classic film, and definitely a film that inspired so many films that would come out after it. And it's just an incredible film. It's an epic film. It's 111 minutes, so it's not as epic as maybe A Touch of Zen is, but is a really great film that would really kind of influence a lot of, the films I had just mentioned with Kurosawa. It would influence a lot of actually Japanese films, but also, a whole genre of wuxia and martial arts films in the future. And King Hu is just one of those legendary directors, and it's a tale of a bunch of people kind of coming together in Dragon Inn and trying to, just fight off evil. I think what makes this film so special is King Hu's direction, of course, and his choreography and editing. It's just an absolutely gorgeous film that everyone needs to watch, and it's just one of those films that would influence a lot of films in the future, but at the same time has its own unique energy to it, and I think it's a lot of fun in its own right. So everyone should check out Dragon Inn, and then eventually watch Goodbye Dragon Inn, which would come out a lot later and is a very different film, but it's a very cathartic film, especially for Taiwan. All right, so going from Taiwan, we're going to go to Germany to 1974, a classic film that is actually a remake, a reinterpretation of sorts from Douglas Sirk's film, All That Heaven Allows, which everyone should check out. This is from 1974. It's Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbender, who I've been saying over and over again in other edits, trying to get this correct. But this is just an essential film talking about the socio-political aspect of Germany and German culture, but also having this really great romance, especially maybe not great romance. It's a romance that just has a lot of tension involved with it because it is dealing with an interracial relationship, and what society thinks at the time. And so if you've seen All That Heaven Allows, obviously it is a very different film and the way it's presented, but it has similar ideas going for it, and really trying to push forth, into the forefront of what, the problems with society is, and the problems that, that relationships can entail. But this is a really great film. It's a hard film to watch at the same time because it is, it's got those heavy elements into it, but it's got a lot of really fun moments as well. And I think it has a really great balance of what it's trying to portray. And I think, a lot of Fassbinder films are just really things that I think a lot of people should just check out and learn more about, kind of German cinema in general. But this is one of the essentials from him, and I think everyone should definitely check out at least once in their life. All right, so next we're going to talk about another Japanese film. I guess a Japanese and English film because it's directed by Paul Schrader. I'm talking about Mishima, A Life in Four Chapters. Well, first of all, this is a gorgeous release, so pick it up for the packaging alone because it's just an absolute stunner of a film. But this is a film from 1985, like I said, directed and written by Paul Schrader. It's probably the best film I think Paul Schrader's ever done, in my opinion, just like by himself, of course, because obviously Taxi Driver he wrote, he didn't direct. But this is a film starring, it's focusing on Mishima. So he's a Japanese author, Yukio Mishima, and it is kind of going in different elements of his life. And the thing is that I think is really interesting, that it is investigating the inner turmoil and contradictions of a man who attempted the impossible task of finding harmony among self, art, and society, and the things would lead him to his ultimate demise. And I think this is what is really fascinating with this film. It's an absolutely gorgeous film. It is a masterclass of film writing and editing and cinematography. It is just one of the best things I've ever seen in my life, and I've only seen it once. And that's how essential this film is. I need to watch this again. I love this film. It is a film that everyone needs to check out, and everyone needs to own it in their collection. Next, we're moving to 1997, to an American film, and I used to not like this director whatsoever, and I've completely changed my mind on this quite a bit recently, and I'm so thrilled to talk about Lost Highway from 1997. I am not a Lynch expert because, like I said earlier, I am really late to the game. I used to not like him very much at all, but Lost Highway wasn't a film that I did not expect to love so much. It is a surrealist dream. Of course, a lot of Lynch's films are like that, but this is a great 4K. This is a recent release, so you can pick this up fairly easily. You're going to easily find this in Barnes & Noble, or if you get it online. But this is just a really great film. I think it's a really great transfer that also came out. I think for the longest time, this was hard to get on physical media, or at least get a good transfer of it, and I just really enjoyed it. So like I said, a lot of people know a lot more about David Lynch than I do, but A Lost Highway, you will not go wrong with this one, and especially if you are into more of the psychological avant-garde type of films, I think Lost Highway is exactly for you. It's starring Patricia Arquette and Bill Pullman, who are just fantastic in it. But I need to watch this again because there's a lot of things that I did not see coming, and then also at the same time I just need to reevaluate, and I'll probably find something new every time I rewatch this movie. So Lost Highway, definitely check this one out, and it's an essential in the collection. Next, we're going to go to the early 2000s, to South Korea, to a thriller that is a masterclass of writing and directing and figuring out what the mystery of this is. I'm talking about Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder from 2003. Wow, what an incredible film. Of course, we know Bong Joon-ho. Most of us know it probably from him from Parasite a couple years back. Also Snowpiercer, which he did not that long ago as well with Chris Evans. But Memories of Murder is probably the film that put him on the map. And it is something that, once again, another film kind of in the same idea space when I was talking about with Lost Highway. Every time you watch it, you're looking for different clues and like, oh, wow, there's something more to this film. I won't talk about it too much because obviously this is a film that, has a lot of layers attached to it. But I think a lot of people need to check this movie out and really just kind of delve deep into the world that Bong Joon-ho kind of delivers. And what's so scary about this is it's very realistic, and in terms of how this could actually happen, because it definitely feels like it could happen in real life. So Memories of Murder, an absolutely essential film in the collection. It'll give you nightmares. It's that good. And last but certainly not least, we are actually in the summer of Wes Anderson, because Wes Anderson had just recently put out Asteroid City, which is a great film, so go check it out in theaters. Wes Anderson films are just better on the big screen to begin with, but I'm talking about 2014's The Grand Budapest Hotel, which is a really great cover. I love it, and I love the pink that's also with it. This is just a really phenomenal film. I think I've said it before on the channel, but I was not a fan of Wes Anderson for the longest time. I had watched Life Aquatic when I was younger, and I didn't really get it, and because at the time I just wasn't thinking like that. And then I watched Moonrise Kingdom, and that one just kind of pissed me off because everyone was just so precocious, and I'm like, this is just art to be art. At the time, I wasn't used to that, and I didn't want to watch something like that. But Grand Budapest Hotel kind of turned me around on that, and it really put forth like, okay, I get this guy's style now. This is the most Wes Anderson film from Wes Anderson, I would say. And it's just so funny, and it has such a great cast. Of course, everyone knows the cast and the way it's set up and the way it's shot and the set design. Wes Anderson is really meticulous and really crafty in the terms of how he's putting things together, and it's very over the top, of course, and very specific. And I think if you know of any Wes Anderson films, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But Grand Budapest Hotel, I think this is probably my favorite film from him. It's just the one that made me fall in love with him. And I think that's what makes it so special to me. But it's definitely a film that I think is for everybody. It's a film that I think a lot of people would find a lot of layers added to this as well. And I think everyone's going to have a good time with it. So hopefully you enjoy some good comedies, some good horrors, some good thrillers, all those things I just mentioned. Let me know what your essentials are down in the comment section down below. I love doing these videos because I love talking about Criterion Collection, and I think it's just a really great time to talk about it because of the Barnes & Noble sale. Also, if you're strapped for cash, just get a couple titles, I know that times are tough right now, so I only got a few, and I'll be doing a video later on, maybe next week when I get all my titles in. I'm just going to be really choosy with it because, times are tough. But I want to say thank you all so much for watching this video. Give it a like, comment down below, share, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and I will see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.